I apologize for our late start. Oh, and I just wanted to let you know that you'll be hearing from the Fairfax County and AACP leadership team, followed by, we've got a wide list of partners and allies that share our interests and goals in the betterment of our community, the elimination of racial discrimination policies and practices, and ensuring a viable and sustainable future for generations to come. So with that, I would like to ask what I'm going to do, because we've got a really tight schedule and we started a few minutes late. I'm going to ask that what I'm going to do is I'm going to read in order the order of all of our Fairfax County leadership team, and just have them, you all have the schedule, just follow along, and once you're done, please pass it on to the next person. We're going to popcorn it, and then we'll have a slight break where I'm going to introduce the partners, and then we're going to follow that as well. And I will also place the schedule in the chat. So with that, I would like to first introduce our two main speakers, Krista Jones, who is with the Black Women's Roundtable. Krista is going to go through talking about the election process and all of the different pieces and offices that are going to be on our ballot. And then she will be followed by Andrea Miller, who is the founder and great leader of the Center for Common Ground, and also the leader of the Democracy Centers, of which we have one here in Northern Virginia called the Northern Virginia Democracy Center. So with that, I will pass it on. And pardon me, I'm going to flip what I just said. We're going to have these two speakers, and then we're going to hear from the Fairfax County leadership team. So I'm passing the mic on to you, Krista.
Well, thank you so much, Karen, and thank you all for joining us here this evening. I really want to set the stage for what I believe we're looking at in the 2023 elections in Virginia and then beyond. When we think about the 2023 elections in Virginia, they are very important, but I want us to all to get into the mindset that every single election is important, and there really is no election season. After Virginia's election on November 7th, where we'll elect our state senators and delegates, as well as several local offices, we'll head into our presidential primary season with Republican caucuses in Iowa on January 15th and the South Carolina Democratic primary on February 5th. We'll have a number of state primaries after that, and then Virginia will have our primary on March 5th, or Super Tuesday, along with several other states. While most of the country is beginning to focus on presidential elections now, since Virginia has off-year elections, or elections every year, as we all know, what happens in Virginia all year round impacts the rest of the nation. So the organizing that we're doing here and that we do all year, how we vote on November 7th, the polling that comes out of Virginia, the statements that will be quoted from leaders and activists that might be covered in news across the nation, will all have an impact not only on November 7th here, but beyond and across the nation. Other states and candidates look to what happens in Virginia, whether it's get out the vote strategies or issues. So this year, obviously abortion, we can all tell, is at the top of the list. And other states will be looking to see how Virginia goes, to see how they might navigate their races and elections. I think it's important to note that while Virginia has a long way to go, it is organizations like all of yours, it's activists like all of you who have helped advance progressive policies and ward off attempts to take our country backwards. Many of the conversations that we're able to have today on this call, whether it's early voting or pre-registration for 16-year-olds, or even looking at our issues differently, we weren't able to have those discussions not too long ago. Just as a reminder, I know you all know some of these dates, but I just want to make sure everyone's aware. We started early voting on September 22nd. On October 16th, that's the last day to register to vote. October 27th is the last day to apply for a ballot to be mailed to you. November 4th is the last day of in-person early voting. From October 16th through November 7th, you can still register to vote and vote that day at your polling place early. Or November 7th, as obviously is election day, and polls are open from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. Despite our advancements in Virginia, it is obvious that 2023 and beyond will be a little different than it has in the past. This is a new game with new rules, and it requires a new playbook. I don't have to remind you all about the attacks on voting rights, erasing and changing history in several states, book bans, and our dysfunction in Congress. We have to do things differently if we're going to keep up with this new game. Long as the day when we could check the box by standing in front of a grocery store to register voters. First of all, we can no longer be reactive. We have to be strategic and think past 2023. I'm very well aware of the fact that we have an election coming up this year, but we can't afford to not think about what's next at the same time. We have to think about things that, like, what are the real-time impacts of our votes in November? What will it mean if certain messages prevail and others don't? What does that in turn mean for the 2025 gubernatorial election or the 2028 elections? How will education about the census when it comes in 2030 impact the next round of redistricting? Even though many of our organizations are C3 nonpartisan organizations, we have to have an understanding of the context in which we are operating. Polling research after the 2022 elections found that perceptions of our power, and this is mainly in the African-American community, are truly essential. We have to feel like we have power in order to want to participate. And progress is power. So that means when we do have achievements in whatever we're doing, and all the issues that we're talking about today, we have to show people that there's been progress over time. Otherwise, why would you want to vote and participate in a system that is not changing? And there has been progress. We just don't often focus on it. Increasing Black political participation in particular requires us to increase Black power. But those perceptions of power have really dissipated over time, particularly among Black men and young Black voters. So for those of us that are focusing on those communities to get out the vote, it has found that the less powerful Black voters feel, the less likely they are to vote. We also need to understand the correlation between perceptions of power and political participation and how quickly that power can erode after Election Day. So all the things we're going to talk about today in terms of getting us to November 7th are key. But what happens on November 8th is also very important in Virginia. We need to start talking about how can we make Election Day the beginning of power rather than the end of power. And I'm talking about power in a few different contexts. One, there's electoral power, which is the ability to elect officials that represent our community and experience and our priorities. And then we need to show the outcomes of what that electoral power gives us. There's negotiating power. We need to show that we have the ability to negotiate with elected officials. That's all the meetings that we're doing 365 all year long about all these issues we're going to discuss today, and show how it moves us closer to where we're trying to get. We also need to show the importance of accountability and protest power, which is the ability to hold elected officials accountable while they're in office through participation, petition, lobby, and protest, marches, et cetera. What comes of all of these marches? We need to be able to show that. And then punitive power is the ability to collectively fire elected officials that do not satisfy the expectations of the job that they were elected to do. And then we need to show the outcomes of that. So I am really excited that we were having this conversation today, and I want us to think more about using the message, how can we fix our democracy instead of defend it? And how can we do that today? And as I said, the rules have definitely changed, and we all need to figure out how we are going to be a part of changing ourselves and our own strategies in order to win at that game. Thank you.
Everybody, it is Andrea Miller here. Thank you, Krista. That was pretty darn inspiring. I am here to talk about tools. This is the 21st century, and we cannot go into our electoral, our advocacy work, or whatever it is that we're doing, acting like it's 1960. Yes, I know sometimes it feels like it's 1860 when we listen to some of the laws that want to take us back. But what I want to show you now are some new tools that we've developed for 2023 and some other tools that we have retooled, getting ready for the 2023 election. So the first thing that I want to show you is our early voting list. And I will drop the link in the chat where you can find this. As most people know, the Commonwealth of Virginia does not produce a single page on a website where you can find every early voting location in the Commonwealth. So I built one where we have the election offices for each county, and all the counties that have satellite offices, their satellites are there. Now, here's Fairfax County, and I'm actually going to type in Fairfax County so that if we've got things on Fairfax Boulevard or City of Fairfax, they don't show up. So here is the main office on Government Center. The address is here. The phone number is here. The times that it's open Monday through Friday, Saturday voting, and Sunday voting. And I want you to notice Fairfax County has 3 Saturdays that they're voting, not just 2 like many localities have. We can also go back and look at the satellite locations. And if the satellite locations are not open now, we show you the dates that the satellites come on board. So all of that will be available for you. And I'll drop the link in the chat in a second. There it is at vavoter.net/EV list. It also has resources where you can look up, if you're not going to early vote, where do you vote on election day? You can register to vote online. You can check your voter registration, and or you can apply for an absentee ballot. And finally, make sure that you have a valid ID. Now, Krista was talking about all the offices that are on your ballot. There is a marvelous tool at myactivevote.com that will show you all those offices and who's running. And now for me, I live in Caroline County. It says on November 7th, which is in 34 days, I have an election for State Senate District 25. Here are the candidates that are running. I also have an election for House District 66, and then a whole collection of local offices, a couple that until I looked at this, I had forgotten were here. My county board for my district, Commonwealth Attorney, Commissioner of the Revenue, School Board, County Sheriff, Soil and Water Conservation, Treasurer, and the County Clerk. And again, as Krista referenced, on March 5th, there will be a presidential primary. Virginia is a Super Tuesday state. Now, there are basically 3 people on the Democratic side. Let me see what this is. All right, Joe Biden, Marianne Williamson, and Robert Kennedy that are running. There's an entire town of Republicans that are running. And then we also have Senator Kaine, who will be on the ticket. And there is a whole collection. There is another town of people that will be running on the other side. I am in District 7. So right now there is no other Democrat that has declared against Abigail Spanberger. And then we have the whole election, we have half the town, and then finally on November 5th, who will be president, Senate, my House district. So I love that tool because all people have to do is put in their address, and then it says, this is what is coming up in your world. Next, we in some of the more rural counties, in some of the African American precincts, we are going to need to really be watching out for people behaving badly at the polls. This is from 2020. We have a brand new one for Virginia for 2023, but it doesn't really have anything on it. So I thought, let me show you an old one that's full of data so you get the full idea of what this tool can be. If you are out and you are observing at polls, this will give you a list of what are the kind of things that could be going on where you are. And then you can pick one. You can write up to a 500-character description of it. And then you can tell us exactly where it happened, and it will map it. I am really popular this time of night, so let me get this off my phone. And city, state, when did it happen? I spent a lot of time in 2017 gathering basically evidence, and we also did it in 2020 for election problems. When you don't have photos, when you don't have videos, you basically have the equivalent of a he said, she said, that happened. This tool gives you the ability, shoot a video on your phone, take a picture on your phone, and that will upload it to our servers. Now, this is a map of some of or all the incidents that were reported in 2020. As I said, we have this for 2023, but right now there's not really anything on it. So let me get rid of that. I am not going to, oh, it may bite me on this because, will it accept that? Oh, it bought it. Wow, I didn't think it would. All right, now this is our election in 2020. And as you can see, there were over 1,000 incidents that got reported on our tool. And down at the bottom, we are categorizing. That's why we have people choose what kind of incident is it, so we can quantify it and say we had this many of this incident happen. And now when you're on your map on any one of the incidents, you can click on it and then you can see it. So, and then I've got one last thing that we are developing, and that will be our tool for people who are giving rides to the polls. So this is what it will look like on your phone. Where are you driving people? You will have a list of voters. When you click on the voter, you will get the voter's address, and there will be a map. When you click on the map, you will then get turn-by-turn instructions on how, or turn-by-turn directions on how to get to the voter's home, and then turn-by-turn directions on where it is that they're going to vote. So thank you. I just wanted to let you take a look at what our tools are looking like. And I am going to, thank you, I'm done. So Erin, back to you.
Thank you so much, Andrea, and thank you so much, Krista. You really gave us a lot to think about. Now we're going to move over to our leadership team, and we'll put in the chat the order that you'll see them, and of course they'll introduce themselves. Also, we have a, if everybody is in speaker, I mean, if you can, particular speaker in gallery mode, we have a little timer to help you guide it. So take it away, Sujatha. Thank you.
Hi,
And
everyone.
oh, by the way, Sujatha is our education committee chair. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here. I didn't have slides. Like, I just am going to tell you some things and give you a website, and you can go put in your address and find some information out yourself to follow up on the things that I say. So this year, we are turning over almost the complete school board. I'm assuming that I am here to tell you about the school board election in particular, which is, and education issues in general. Education issues are front and center in the campaign, in the importance, in the dialogue that we're having politically. In all areas, education is sort of like a linchpin in the whole thing. Everything is turning on that. And there's a lot of misinformation, and there's a lot of fear mongering, and there's a lot of denigrating of teachers, denigrating of public school advocates, a lot of leadership, and trying to sort of find a wedge issue that everybody's interested in our kids. Everybody is interested in knowing that they're going to be safe when they go to school. And so there are some issues that are being manipulated in this. Some of these are misunderstanding of equity and misunderstanding of things like CRT. You will have heard that a lot of times. People just like absolutely convinced that critical race theory is destroying everything. Gender fluidity issue, all kinds of things regarding LGBTQ and trans issues, they're on the ballot now. So books, libraries, freedom of access to the full gamut of things that are age appropriate in school libraries and public libraries, that's on the ballot. Parents' rights, sort of acting as though there are some people who are acting as though parents haven't had rights in school, as though all the rights that they're saying that parents don't have, that they haven't always had. Parents have always had a right to comment on curriculum, to make their voices known regarding book choices, regarding textbook choices. That's always been part of the analysis. Any public comment includes that as well. So what you need to know is that something that was spoken to earlier, the accountability, the protest power, we have to hold our public officials accountable, obviously, but we also have to make sure that the narrative that's being spoken by the people who are running is true, and it's not just fear mongering. Your teachers are not out to get you. They're not trying to convert your children. They're not trying to make your kids something that they are not. They're not trying to push a narrative that is not true. I have run out of time, it seems. I haven't even said anything, but I want you to just pay attention to, you can go to vpap.org and you can get the full list of, you can put in vpap.org and you can find vpap.org Virginia. You can put in your address. You'll find out who your candidates are, and you can go and read their what they say. But when you read what they say, keep in mind that there is a lot of stuff that candidates are saying now, especially candidates from the party that is not incumbent, let's say, in those particular seats, that is just designed to fearmonger, that is not based in truth. That sometimes is outright lies, and it's trying to fearmonger parents who don't know any better to make decisions based in fear rather than based in facts. And I don't know if I can say anything more than that in 3 minutes, but maybe there will be time later to discuss. Thank you.
Hi, this is Luke Levasseur. Somebody needs to start my clock, so I'll run past even more than Sujatha if I'm given free rein. So I'm the chair of the Criminal Justice Committee for the NAACP, and I'll just briefly describe what's on the ballot. I mean, obviously people are on the ballot, but what are the issues that are going to drive this election? And what are you voting for when you have, different options? So essentially, the NAACP big picture, by and large, pushes and advocates for progressive policies that will benefit people economically disadvantaged and obviously people of color across the Commonwealth, and focusing here in Northern Virginia because that's our home base. So what is on the ballot this year? Well, in 2020, the Democratic Party was in control of the House and the Senate and in the General Assembly, and had the governorship, and passed a whole series of criminal law reforms. They prohibited certain administrative stops by police officers, which have a history of being racially biased. They banned no-knock search warrants. They limited the use of neck restraints. They made changes that made it easier to decertify police officers for misconduct. They granted local jurisdictions authority to have police civilian review panels, which can impose disciplinary decisions. They made it easier to they decriminalized and made legal certain uses of cannabis, and they got rid of the death penalty. All of those things are on the ballot this year because all of those things are on the agenda of a party of different candidates to make those things, to reverse those decisions, to roll those decisions back. It's going to be one of the series of things that the NAACP and other progressive groups have advocated for, ending qualified immunity, making it easier to reinstate the rights, the civil rights, voting rights of felons after they've served their time, increasing rehabilitation opportunities for convicted felons. Those things are probably not going to be on the agenda no matter who wins this year because of the difficulty of getting them passed through the governor's mansion. But those are issues to be aware of for the future. So the state offices are going to control the big picture, what the law is, what the crimes are. The Board of Supervisors controls the police department here in Fairfax County. Those offices are going to, when we don't like what the police department does, we go to the Board of Supervisors, who hire the police chief and hire are in control, in charge of the police department. So police reform, holding FCPD accountable for inappropriate policing actions, those are things that are at issue at the Board of Supervisors. Oh my gosh, I've blown my time. Apologies. Also, the Commonwealth's attorney, I'll just quickly mention, the Commonwealth's attorney race is on the ballot. Technically, Steve Descano, who is our Commonwealth's attorney, is unopposed in the sense that the Republicans did not put forward a candidate. The Republican Party, as I understand it, is now trying to mount a write-in campaign against Steve Descano. I don't know to what extent they're trying to run the candidate who lost to Steve Descano in the Democratic primary. I don't know to what extent he is participating in that, but obviously people need to be aware of Steve's record. It's pretty easy to find and understand what he is and what his positions are. And so that's it. I've exceeded my time. Apologies for that, Karen, and I will stop now.
Am I on?
You're on. You've got the floor, Mary.
Okay, thank you. I'm Mary Payton. I'm the chair of the Housing Committee at Fairfax NAACP. And we work on a number of issues, and we really depend on having supervisors on the Board of Supervisors who we can work with on these issues. We work on displacement. There's a lot of growth going on in Fairfax County now as Some of you may have noticed that the real estate prices are going up, the rental prices are going up. And there's a lot of development along transit corridors. And as a result, a lot of people are going to be displaced according to the plans that we have generated for doing that kind of transit-oriented development. The older apartment buildings, not yet, but eventually will be remodeled into new, destroyed and rebuilt into taller, better, newer apartment buildings, but they likely won't replace all the units that they have displaced. Although we have a policy of no net loss, actually making that happen is a whole other thing. We're also concerned with fair housing. We have some new goals and new guidelines on fair housing, and we're really anxious in having an intentionally based program in fair housing, whereas we actually pick some items that we think we can make progress on and go after it and measure it and report it. And we think we have a shot now at doing that with our new housing goals that are in conjunction with the whole Council of Governments area. The Board of Supervisors kind of does two things for affordable housing. And we need housing at the whole spectrum of affordable housing, all the way from getting people who are homeless into little efficiencies to getting housing for teachers and firemen. We don't have enough affordable housing to house our workforce for the county or for all of the essential worker jobs that we lauded so heavily during the pandemic. People can't live here who work here, and they need to be able to do that, or we don't have a really equitable and self-sustaining community. So the Board of Supervisors has to find the money to build new affordable housing and preserve the old affordable housing. They have to be willing to spend money on that. And then they also have to be willing to kind of go against the opposition. Every time you try to build affordable housing somewhere, a lot of the neighbors come out and say, we don't want that, because they have ideas about old HUD projects in the 70s, and they're just scared and they don't want anybody in there that's not like them. So that's a process that has to go on, and the Board of Supervisors need to provide leadership for that. So we have, we're members of a coalition. NACP is members in a Fairfax Healthy Communities Coalition that deals with land use issues. Affordable housing is a lot about land use because it's built on land. And we have produced a survey responses from all the Board of Supervisor candidates on affordable housing, on transportation, on climate and environment, and on food security. And I'm going to put the link to that survey in the chat. And I really encourage you to go and look up your district, look up your supervisor candidates, and see how each one of them has responded to the different questions about these topics, because these are all crucial topics to people who live here, and how the county develops, how fair that is, how equitable it is a major issue on the ballot box this year. And we need to select candidates that are going to make sure that our future development is equitable and is fair. And you should go there and find out. Okay, thank you.
Hello?
Mike, you're on.
I thought Nikki was up. Did I miss the order? Oh, you changed.
She's not on.
Okay, sorry, you changed it up. All right, I'm Mike Woltz. I am Chair of Legal Redress Committee. And Karen, can you put the first quote in the chat? Okay, I want folks to see that. That's the first line of an article. Fairfax County Police Department has come out in opposition to the prospect of enhanced powers for the two entities charged with overseeing its handling of community complaints and conflicts. Now, can you post a link to the article that everybody, I would like you to read after this program is done? Just the headline alone FCPD says expanded oversight not needed, still working on foot pursuit policy, which in February, after Timothy Johnson was killed, we sent a letter about that, or made a statement about the foot pursuit policy. So expanded oversight not needed, still working on foot pursuit policy. That is a beautiful contradictory line if I've ever seen one. I don't have enough time to go into everything that legal redress deals with or what you will be considering as you vote, but really want to underscore issues you have with certain services or departments within our county is under the responsibility, control, authority of our Board of Supervisors. And I cannot go without mentioning that the current police chief, who did not cause all the issues we have with the police, I want to be clear, was put in this position despite vociferous opposition from the NAACP and several other organizations within the county, and a channel and NBC news story from about 30 years ago that chronicled his abuse of a citizen. The man is bloodied in the video. Davis was found liable, civilly liable of that. And another case where they called it kidnapping, basically held somebody hostage for a certain amount of time. He proceeded in his career. He was fired in Baltimore and now he's police chief. So the Board of Supervisors is who we should put most of the focus and blame on. I don't hold somebody as responsible for taking a job that's offered to them. I hold responsible those who gave them the job. Whatever issues we have, we really need to bring it to them. And while I think it's safe to say we recognize between the two major political parties, there seems to they're not the same. But at the same time, we need to make sure that we don't allow those who are supposed to represent one thing or portrayed as one thing, we don't take them for granted or let them off the hook. They've gotten very comfortable and complacent in this county and used to just getting a majority wave, washing them in and not really being held accountable to us. Jeff McKay, who's chair of the board, he is a deputy reserve sheriff. It seems to be the best kept secret that he doesn't try to make a secret, but I think a lot of people just don't know. I learned about it at a civilian review panel meeting, ironically, of all places, where members of that panel, and this was back in 2020, it's probably turned over in membership since then, expressed frustration with not having authority to do more. Over 3 years later, and they're still, in the article, you'll see they're still talking about wanting to do more. So we need to be really focused about certain issues that matter to us, see who has the authority and control and the power to change, make decisions, and keep the pressure on them constantly. We need to be, voting is only one component. As Krista said, it's after they're in, then what do we do? We need to know what they're deciding at their meetings that usually occur during the day when a lot of people don't have a chance to attend or watch or know what's going on. We need to be tracking what they're doing month in and month out, holding them accountable by those actions, using that as they go into the next elections. I think folks, we're so distracted, there's so much going on, it's hard to keep focus on that. But if we don't, we end up what we have, which in large part is an unsatisfactory board of leadership. They have not made us safer by some of their decisions. And like I said, that's just one example. There's plenty others, and folks have said it. I want us to be mindful. After you read this, just think about the things that people have problems with. Qualified immunity, like Luke said, Officer Bill of Rights, that impacts the ability of a civilian review panel to even have more broad responsibilities and authority. My time is up, and I went a little early because I'll say my committee member was keeping time and she was looking out for me. But please, I want everyone to stay focused. And just because somebody has a letter beside their name for which party they are, does not mean they're working in our interests.
All right, hello. I'm Will Cooper. I'm the chair with the Armed Services Veteran Affairs Committee for Fairfax NAACP. Thank you for being here tonight and just listening to the committee members. Mike, that was really good info, and I hope a lot of people kept their ears open on that. Appreciate that that info, brother. So as the chair for the Veterans Affairs Committee, my job at this level is pretty much to provide veterans and active duty military folks, reservists, National Guardsmen, and veterans with information that could be very beneficial, specifically for when they leave active duty. But also, you know, trying to help military folks and veterans as a whole who may deal with issues of discrimination on account of their race, their color, and a lot of those issues that we've seen more so on the federal level overall is denial of disability benefits, medical benefits, and things that are related to that, to those issues. And why is that important? Well, historically, World War II, we had a lot of veterans, Black veterans who came home and they were denied access to the GI Bill. They were not denied access to fair housing, the VA loan. And so that had a ripple effect on veterans being able to grow economically. And so unfortunately, when you look at the statistics, there still is a disparity with Black veterans being approved for medical benefits, education benefits, and VA loans. Now, that could be education, maybe that we need to work more, provide more workshops, but the numbers doesn't support that. It's just education. And so the role, something that I'm trying to do at this level is be able to provide more workshops also to help and to listen to veterans as far as what their issues are. Myself as a veteran, served 19 years in the Air Force. I'm still a reservist. I personally had issues with trying to file medical claims that were directly related to combat, my combat experience in Afghanistan twice and in East Africa. And so some of the issues I had just made no sense, but when you dig into it, it's unfortunate that it's tied to it's tied to issues that many Black Americans have faced and who have served as in the military. We face these issues. So that's something I'd like to bring to light, get smarter on, and provide more information about how to file benefits, understand what rights you have as a veteran, and if you have issues, who to contact. I mentioned earlier that most of the issues are at the federal level because, you know, we're military, so a lot of the things that we tackle are at the federal level. But at the local level, we can still meet with local officials, county officials, to help with challenges related to veterans and housing. As you know, in many parts of America, veterans make up the largest population of homeless citizens. And so 3 minutes go by fast. I actually set a timer so I wouldn't forget. So my timer went off. But if you want more information or to join the committee, please, you can email me at will.s.cooper.civ@gmail.com. Again, that's will, will.s.cooper.civ@gmail.com. That's what I'm using right now until I get access to our official email, and I'll be happy to provide more information. Thank you for your time.
Thank you to all of the Fairfax County and AACP leadership. You've heard information about all of the issues they've been working on. This is a continual work. And as you heard repeatedly, there's a lot to be done, and the work doesn't end on election day. And so we need you to go out and get your voices heard on the ballot and then start working the next day. So now we are having a time change where I'm going to do the same format in which we'll just popcorn to the next speaker. I'd like to introduce all of our wonderful allies and partners throughout the Commonwealth and around Fairfax County, and they're going to tell us what they've been working on and why this election is important and how best to continue the work moving forward. So I will turn everything over to President Helen Fisher from the Fairfax County Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority. Thank you, President Fisher, and thank you to all of our partners. I will continue to keep posting the names of all of our organization as we change speakers. You're on, President Fisher.
Thank you so much. Delta Sigma Theta has been committed to service through social action since its founding in 1913. Fairfax County Alumni Chapter was chartered in 1993, and we continue our sorority's goals to be focused on social change. Delta Sigma Theta sorority is nonpartisan, but we use our influence to enact laws and policies and sustain and expand the rights and privileges of citizenship and to protect the vulnerable and unfortunate. Delta Sigma Theta sorority's Virginia legislative agenda includes 6 specific areas: voters' rights, education, healthcare, justice reform, economic opportunity and security, and environmental justice. For voters' rights, we support voting access and voter engagement. We oppose efforts that limit access to voters, such as voters' law or ID laws, limitation on voter eligibility, reduction of polling hours or days, and restrictive requirements for absentee voting. Excuse me, just a second. Got noise in the background. For education, we support policies that focus on historical inclusiveness and intentional assessments of educational gaps in schools. We support transparent disclosure of data and mandating comprehensive corrective action plans. And we want equitable funding across the Commonwealth. For healthcare, we support policies that proactively address healthcare disparities and address social determinants of health. And we also support equitable access to COVID-19 tests, treatments, and vaccines. For justice reform, we support new models for creating real safety in our communities. And we want to end the racial disparities, and we want sensible gun laws. For economic opportunities and securities, we support policies that provide livable wages, provide workers protection, establish a framework for paid family and medical leave, and offer security for lost wages, evictions, utility disconnections, and access to food. And the 6th agenda item is the environmental justice. We support policies that ensure all have a clean environment, access to affordable, renewable, clean energy alternatives, a modern energy infrastructure, and healthy communities with access to clean water. Solidarity in defense of democracy is our advocacy charter. Thank you.
Pat, you're next.
Oh, I was waiting for Alpha Kappa Alpha. Okay, sorry, can you hear me? Does it? Oh, good, it works. We provide a lot of education to our voters in Fairfax County and the surrounding area. And we do much of the same things. I'm impressed with the amount of information that I have heard that you provide, that all the people that previously spoke, how you were providing information to our citizens. We do the same thing. We do a lot of education. Lately, we have been really concentrating on voter registration, helping people register to vote, giving them information. But what we have recently discovered is that if people have information, even if they are registered to vote, about half of them don't vote. That's what the statistics show us. So recently, we've really been pushing on getting people to the polls. It's more than just learning and understanding. It's that activism piece. That part of activism is voting. Not only is voting, but starting people to vote when they are first eligible to vote. There is actually some research that shows if you have a young person, now people who have read the Bible know this, if you have a young person and get them started in a habit, it continues. We've been working a lot with high school students to get them to vote. We have been in Fairfax County libraries. People walk in and say, "Oh, is there an election this year?" We really have to focus on helping people get to the polls, know that their vote is important, know what the issues are so that they are ready to vote. So I urge all of you to talk to young people, talk to your friends and neighbors. I have seen that the most important way to get people to vote is peer-to-peer interaction. Postcards are great, signs are great, peer-to-peer, talk to talk. I hope you do that. I hope that we have a huge turnout at the polls. Thank you.
I'm Leslie Houston, and I am the president of Fairfax Education Association. What I will do is say ditto to everything that Sujatha said earlier. The upcoming elections are very, very important to educators and staff in the school system, especially knowing that we are now under attack. Many of our teachers are under attack, and the people who are elected in November will help to either build Fairfax County up or tear this county down. We have been sharing with our membership that their votes matter. We've provided them with a list of recommended candidates. There are certain things that we are definitely trying to educate our members and non-members on. The election of education-friendly school board members will have a significant impact on education policy at the school district and county levels. We're trying to make sure that they understand that the school budgets and funding allocation will be key issues, especially when voting for the Board of Supervisors. And then also, since FCPS has approved collective bargaining, depending upon who we get in as school board members, you know, those elected officials may have the power to negotiate our contracts and make decisions that affect the compensation and well-being of educators. So the one thing I want to leave everyone with is that it's one thing to elect these people. Sometimes it's the lesser of the two evils, but once they are elected, they can't take us for granted, and we have to hold them accountable. And that's something huge that we must get across to all of the voters. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, folks. Here we go. My name is Sarah Silverage de Sousa. I'm the Executive Director of Rest and Strong. We're an all-volunteer-run community action group. We're truly grateful to Fairfax NAACP, Karen, Mary, Jerry, and I can keep going with the list. They've truly been our partners at the county level, both on some of our direct action campaigns as well as the advocacy piece. As an uber local 501c3 focused on social justice issues, I'm here to remind you, all politics is local. Decisions made at every level of government have real life impacts on our lives and those of our neighbors. Housing policies, federal, statewide, and at the county level impact our neighbors in low-income housing, in shelters, and for us at Rest and Strong, especially our neighbors living in tents. Mary Payton articulated beautifully the dire need of affordable housing, the impacts of our communities with the policies decisions, and I love how she calls for leadership. The importance of the Board of Supervisors to be brave, bold leaders in this arena is critical. Homelessness has gone up. We've got the numbers and the data to support it. Rest and Strong has been active for the last 3 years advocating for our 30+ neighbors who live in tents. Housing aside, a timely example to share with you is the importance of your intelligent, educated participation in the upcoming election for Reston, is the Comstock Casino proposal. I'll post a link in the chat with some investigative articles with campaign donations and elected officials. Please talk to your elected officials, educate yourself on the pros and cons. And lastly, politics is not a spectator sport. True democracy needs your participation. Please participate at every level, not just the vote, the advocacy, the follow through, holding them accountable. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Tanisha Griffin. I'm the Environmental Policy Analyst in New Virginia Majority. It's great to spend this evening with you talking about this very important issue, getting people out to the polls, and all the different ways that we can do that in Virginia with our expanded voting rights, and how important that is for us. So again, I'm with New Virginia Majority, and we're a grassroots organizing civic engagement organization, and we focus on building power among working class communities of color, immigrant communities, women, and youth across the state, and mostly along the urban crescent. So in Richmond, Fairfax, Arlington, Loudoun, Hampton Roads area, so Norfolk, Virginia Beach, and Hampton and Newport News. And I want to share a little bit about, in response to the question about what issues are on the ballot for us, things that we are looking forward to and wanting to progress and build when I'm thinking about building power and how that's central to our mission, and building a representative democracy. I want to speak about that, and then also share in the chat a list of the victories and things that we've achieved as a state in the past couple of years. And I'll put that there. Some things that our members are really interested in, focused on, and organizing on along the urban crescent, all our different chapters and hubs. And we want to achieve at the state level is like allowing localities to enact rent stabilization, the cost of housing, the affordability of housing, the quality of housing, housing discrimination. All these things are important to our members, but affordability is something that is critical and of a necessity for improving along in all of our different areas of work. On criminal justice, we're focused on exploring statewide counsel at first appearance policy. That's something that's really important to us and something we want to move forward. And we can't do that without having the representative democracy that we need in the state of Virginia. Providing health coverage to undocumented children to ensure all children have health care coverage. This is another goal we have, and we need to be able to build power this election in order to do that. Also, we have ensuring there is collective bargaining rights for domestic workers. So that's child care providers, elder care, home health care providers, and gig workers. So that's Uber and Lyft drivers. These folks oftentimes don't have the power, and there's a lot of different other dynamics there. But in code and law to be able, that's explicit to make sure that they are protected when they want to bargain with their employers for wage rights and worker protections. And then also, as an environmental policy person at NVN, we want to make sure that our Virginia Environmental Justice Act is built on. Right now, it is a mandate, is a mission kind of statement. It is binding under the law, but we have a lot more to do with our state agencies that work in the environment and are required to protect people's health and well-being in the environment. And that law is still not complete, finished, and can be improved for its implementation. So do take a look at those different victories that we've had over the past couple of years. They're expansive, and having any rollbacks on any one single one of them would be a huge detriment to the state and folks that we represent. So thank you.
We can't hear you, Soo-Kyung. I think you're muted.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so sorry about that. Hi, my name is Soo-Kyung Oh. I use she, her pronouns. I am the director of Hamke Center. Just wanted to thank the NAACP for this invitation today. It's good to know that you all consider us partners, because we sure consider you all our partners. We primarily work with Asian American communities. Now, Asian American is very diverse, right? There's like dozens of ethnic groups, more than, many dozen languages spoken, faiths that are worshipped, etc. Right? And I think the thing that, in particular, we think about who in Asian American communities are marginalized, right? So from there, the things that we work on include language access, right? So how do we go beyond providing language services beyond Spanish? Not that we're saying in Spanish they're even provided that well, but certainly oftentimes local agencies are not thinking beyond English and Spanish. Or they'll say, well, just use that Google app to translate everything. And I'll just say, having used it myself and like looking through it, translations are not always accurate. We're also looking at protecting equity. Asian Americans are being targeted by white conservative groups to fight against civil rights and affirmative action. So what can we do to really make sure Asian Americans are actually standing up to protect equity, whether it's in education or in other areas? Access to healthcare, so for undocumented young people, as well as anyone who's undocumented and is living and working here in the state. And lastly, I'll talk about anti-China rhetoric, which in many ways actually is the main driver for what we see is anti-Asian violence and discrimination. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Richard Walk. I'm the founder of Bridging the Gap in Virginia, a nonprofit 501c3 that is primarily focused on criminal justice reform, prison reform, environmental justice reform, and overall changing the narrative in Virginia when it comes to individuals incarcerated. Since being incarcerated myself, I've devoted much of my life to other people rehabilitate and re-enter society after serving time behind bars. But for far too long, Black people in Virginia and throughout the South have had their voting rights suppressed. Bridging the Gap brought a lawsuit in conjunction with the ACLU, Protect Democracy, as well as the law firm of Wilmer Hale. What the lawsuit is basically addressing is the Act of 1870, the Readmission Act, where it was stated that individuals were being incarcerated just as a direct result, and that there was a deliberate and general purpose to seize Negroes, procure convictions for petty offenses punishable at the whipping post, and thus disqualify them from ever voting. This was all after the Civil War. But after the Civil War, the statute included ongoing requirements to ensure that equal protection of the laws, including requiring each former Confederate state to ratify the 14th Amendment. This is stated in Virginia's readmission, that the state of Virginia is admitted to representation in Congress as one of the states of the Union upon the following fundamental conditions. First, that the Constitution of Virginia shall never be so amended or changed as to deprive any citizen or class of citizens of the right to vote by the Constitution. So we've taken on this lawsuit primarily because Virginia has violated. And I'm sure you have been paying attention to the news of late. This current administration has since taken 17,000 plus individuals off the voting list. Individuals that have had their rights restored by previous governors, individuals that have voted already in previous elections. And then as recent of this last primary in June, individuals have gone to vote and were told that their voting rights had been revoked. We have to be on point, or have to be cognizant of what the governor's doing. He's not announcing any of his actions that he has taken thus far. So As a result of this violation of Readmission Act of 1870, there's 312,540 Virginians who are disenfranchised, rendering Virginia the state with the 5th highest numbers of disenfranchisement for felony convictions. So this is critical at this point. We must go beyond and must go forward to hold this governor accountable, to hold this administration accountable for continuously disenfranchising individuals their constitutional right to vote. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lynn Godfrey. I'm with the Sierra Club Virginia chapter. I'd like to thank Karen for inviting me to briefly talk about our engagement with the NAACP around the issue of environmental justice. I mean, listening to the leadership tonight and understanding where we are historically. And as Richard said, this is critical. We're in critical times, people. This is critical. We're in pivotal times, make or break for democracy. I like the quote from Martin Luther King. He says, our only hope today lies in our ability to recapture the revolutionary spirit and go out into a sometimes hostile world, declaring eternal hostility to poverty, racism, and militarism. And to this, and that's unquote, and I'm saying this, and to this we can add environmental justice. I have worked with Karen and the NAACP Environmental Justice Chair for several campaigns here in Virginia, which we have been victorious in fighting environmental justice and underrepresented environmental pollution in underrepresented communities. You know, she was, the NAACP was helpful in the Atlantic Coast Pipeline victory, you know, instrumental in the Lambert's compressor station victory. And now we're working with them and other internal and intra pipelines that we have won, and Karen and the NAACP has been on the forefront of that. And to that, I would like to say thank you. But we are at critical times, and a thread that runs through these intersectional social injustices is environmental justice as well as education, as was previously said. So thank you, and our work is cut out for us. And thanks for the allyship, Karen, as well as the partnership. And we look forward to future fights and victories with you.
Hello, my name is Xander. I'm with the Chesapeake Climate Action Network as a Northern Virginia organizer. I use he, him pronouns. And I'm here because climate is on the ballot. And CCAN's grassroots members and so many folks and organizations on this call are working together to make sure that we fight for climate justice at all levels of government here. In Fairfax County, we are hosting 2 grassroots campaigns. The first one is our Reconnection campaign to reconnect ourselves to our green spaces. And with that campaign in a coalition, we've been able to successfully, over the past 2 years, get $2 million in additional funding for environmental justice within the Fairfax County Park system. Now, as is the theme, all that is under threat. And so we are continuing to get folks engaged and out in their local communities and get them into the Board of Supervisors hearings to make their voices heard to protect those wins. And along that same theme, we have seen money for electrification and weatherization come to our state from the Inflation Reduction Act and from the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. And we have been fighting to make sure those funds are used before anti-climate legislators take them away because they say nobody used them. So to do that, our local chapter started a petition drive. We got 400 folks signed up over this past summer to pledge to plug in to access these initiatives. And then we helped those folks do that. We called through that list and we hosted 6 open houses where folks who had gotten those funds and used those initiatives could break down the barriers and educate folks in their own homes who were interested in that. And that local activism informs what we do on the state level. So we've seen some gaps in these programs. When we did these open houses, we see people who say, I would love to put solar panels on, but it's too darn expensive and I have a giant tree in my front yard. So I would sign up for a solar program if I could have it be affordable and off-site. And we're fighting for bills like that in the General Assembly, along with some of the other ones that were mentioned, like protecting folks from utility shutoffs and fighting to lower energy bills statewide. So thank you all.
Hi, everyone. My name is Christian Martinez, and I am the Research and Policy Analyst at CASA. And so a lot of the work I do where we advocate is Prince William County and Fairfax County. But now we're starting to do work in Richmond. And so the members' priorities that were voted on recently circled around safe streets, surrounding transportation, affordable housing, rent stabilization, and continuing to protect a lot of the immigrant work we do. And so in Fairfax County, we saw a lot of success in the past couple of years, passing the trust policy in the county and local level, and as well as continue to push on transportation safety, as that's one of the main things going around in Fairfax County. And so we need to continue to advocate that and push for leaders who are going to be advocating for those reasons. And so that's one big thing on the ballot. Prince William County, one thing that our members are continuing to advocate for is the trust policy. And so continue to voice that in the community, continue to speak to those supervisors and legislators to get that voice and concern out and let the community be heard by them. And so that's another thing being heard out. In the state legislature, our members want rent stabilization. We need to continue to advocate for that, continue to voice that to whoever's going to be in the House of Delegates or the Virginia Senate, and make sure whoever wins in November is going to advocate for those reasons. And there's so much of the progress that we have voted on in a General Assembly from this session and previous sessions that we can't risk to get repealed. And so we're going to continue to advocate for those things and have those conversations with whoever's in the legislatures. But it's important to get everyone's voices heard, and whoever's, whether they're English speakers, Spanish speakers, or even our French speakers, and to make sure everyone is engaged in the civic engagement process. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting us tonight. We're honored to be among so many just great historical leaders and groups that have been working on civil rights. Speaking of civil rights and historical, Vote Equality continues to work on constitutional gender equality. Our group spun out of the VA Ratify ERA campaign. After Virginia ratified, we decided we needed to keep pushing because here we are a few years later and they still have not published our 28th Amendment. So our group works more nationally during federal elections, but this year, since there's no federal election, we decided, since we're based in Virginia, let's keep doing some good work around the state. So we are conducting a tour, which is that's kind of our bread and butter of what we do, grassroots outreach, particularly with students on campuses. Our big pitch this year is twofold. One is we want the publication of the Federal Equal Rights Amendment. And secondly, we want to start the conversation about a better gender equality clause in the Virginia Constitution. Our most recent Constitution was written in the 70s, which was the height of the civil rights movement and the height of the kind of the ERA coming out. And it had a big carve out on gender equality, that it was, separate but equal was still okay because of VMI. And so our gender equality in our Virginia Constitution has always been pretty much gutted and meaningless. And we would like to see that fixed. And as we start working on a Virginia state constitution for equality, if we're going to work for equality, we'd like to work for it on behalf of everyone. And so we are taking a larger, more inclusive equality constitutional push. We'd like to see age, disability, race, religion, country of origin, basically everybody. The government should be treating everybody equally. So that's our big push. We do it in a couple ways. We try to stay in a space of joy because the anger burns out fast. And so we continue to do work in really based in art and activism, a lot of grassroots effort. We have a branded RV that we like to call the Notorious RVG, stands for Ruthless Vote Getter. And so she is going around the Commonwealth, going to college campuses and just having any conversation with anybody that wants to have one. We have a lot of Sharpie markers, and the college students love to come up and put their own, tag it with their own signatures. And we give away a lot of equal rights posters to the college kids. So we're working on building what we call the joyful ruckus. We believe that equality can die in a vacuum, but with a joyful ruckus, they'll just have to publish the 28th Amendment one day. And I would like to also extend an invitation if anybody here would ever like to join us. We have 4 different drivers. I'll be driving a couple of weekends coming up. Just reach out, and we'd love to have you join our joyful ruckus. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much to all of the partners that joined us here tonight. And I would like to say thank you for everyone for staying with us. We went a few minutes over, but it was such important information, and it was very difficult to stop somebody while they were telling us whether it's really good information, resources, or tools that are going to be available to us to make sure that we're educated voters and ways we can plug in to continue this after Election Day and keep building and working to building that one Fairfax, right? And a better Virginia. But before we close, I just want to say Election Day is around the corner. As you know, we're in early voting. We are although we have not received a lot of major comments or comments about voter intimidation or issues at the polls. We do anticipate those, particularly as we get closer to Election Day. So if you have not already and you have the opportunity to do so, or your friend or family member has an opportunity to do so, please apply to be an election officer, poll watcher on the inside. We also need election officers and poll watchers on the outside. We are currently building an election protection team. So if you'd like to be a part of that, please let us know. We're going to have a meeting next weekend about it to kind of finalize our plan. I am going to what I'm putting in the chat right now is a list of all of the different resources we do have for the election, including on the top how you can sign up to be a part of our election protection team. So if you've already signed up to be an inside poll watcher, please let me know. I'd love to know what poll location you're going to be. If you are planning on joining, applying to be an inside poll watcher, please fill that out. I'd like to know who's going to be doing that on Election Day. If you'd like to be a part of our election protection team, also fill that out. The Virginia State Conference NAACP over the last few months have been doing a lot of different programs, one including in which they did an election protection 101, which gives all the basics and will give you more information about what that entails. And so a link to the video and resources that was as a result of that effort is also on that sheet that I put in the chat. And then we had a wonderful voting rights virtual symposium where we had the chair of the NAACP board, Leon Rosso, serve as keynote speaker. But we also talked about a lot of the things that we heard today, the history of voting rights and how it's we're at risk of losing it. So that was the Let My People Vote virtual symposium. You'll see some information on that. And then also throughout our election cycle, Virginia NAACP will be posting updates on how you can be involved, more information about if we're, as we heard from Richard Walker, where there were about over 17,000 voters, registered voters were pulled from the polls. And then a couple of days ago, we saw another article that said, oops, it wasn't supposed to be 17,000. We made a mistake. So this is going to take all our eyes and ears and reporting together and working together to make sure that everyone who has who are eligible to vote has access to the ballot. So with that, I will say thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for giving me a few extra moments of your time. If you have any questions or you would like to continue this conversation, feel free to email me at politicalaction@fairfaxnaacp.org. Keep an eye out. Everything that we got, including the panelist links, will be sent out to everybody who registered. And let's keep this conversation going. Let's vote and let's keep the work going. We got to build up for 2024 and beyond. Thank you so much, and everybody have a wonderful evening. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.